Hazrat Imam, we seek permission to submit a small memento as a token of the Canadian institution's loyalty and gratitude for Khudawand's benevolence and guidance. The gift, Hazrat Imam, is a bronze sculpture by late Bill Reid, a famous Aboriginal artist. He named this sculpture the Bear Mother. The story of Bear Mother tells of the founding of Bear family within one of the Haida clan groupings. In the myth, it is the Bear Mother's role as a mother that gives meaning, and the focus of her existence is her children. In speaking about this sculpture, Bill Reid said, and I quote, "The Bear Mother, being human, is looking into the future, concerned more with her children than her legend." Khudawand, far be it for us to seek to make a comparison with a Bear Mother, but we feel that the underlying imagery of this piece of art symbolizes, even in a small measure, the Imam's love, warmth, nurturing, and protection of his murids.
And I have to say that as I look to the future, I have a deep sense of confidence that the Jamaat around the world is finding its position in the various countries, that our institutions are beginning to have an impact on the quality of life and the quality of thought and the quality of governance in the various countries where we are living. And I say to myself, that is due to what? It's due to your wisdom, your knowledge, you're willing to help each other and to have the courage to think past crises, because that ultimately is the nature of what we all have to do, is to think past crises.
خوش آمدید. Welcome, bienvenue یا علی مدد. تشکر از همراهی شما به یک دیگر از برنامه‌های بازتاب جمعه شب. نام من منیرا پریمجی هست و من گزارشگر اخبار نیستم. من یک همسر و مادر هستم که در آینده نزدیک مادر بزرگ خواهم شد و افتخار دارم که چند قبل واکسن شدم. من همچنین نویسنده و کارمند منابع بشری و یک شخصی که با سرطان مقابله کرده و هنوز با آینده امیدوار هستم. میخواهم به همه اعضای جماعت، اعضای خانواده های آنها، از سایر ادیان و همه کسانی که از سراسر کانادا و در واقع از سراسر جهان با ما هستند از صمیم قلب خوش آمدید بگویم. من از خانه‌ام در تورنتو با چای و کلچه مخصوص خود که مادرم به همین مناسبت تهیه کرده با شما صحبت می کنم. می خواهم بدانید که میزبانی برنامه بازتاب جمعه شب برای من یک رویا است که به واقعیت تبدیل شده است. 1 سال است که در آرزویش بودم. هر هفته من و خانواده‌ام برنامه‌ها را با هم تماشا می‌کنیم. برای ما این برنامه‌ها در مورد ارتباط و اجتماع و محتوای عالی و میزبانان جذاب، الهام بخش و گاه خنده‌دار آن است. و کاری که ما دوست داریم انجام دهیم دقت روی پس منظرهای اتاق میزبانان و سخنرانان از جمله پرزیدنت صاحب است. برای ما این مانند یک سرگرمی ادامه داشت. من و شوهرم خیلی سعی کردیم که قسمت‌های مختلف خانه خود را انتخاب کنیم تا پس منظر مناسب به شما پیدا کنیم. اکنون ممکن است در درجه بندی پس منظر اتاق نمره خوبی کسب نکنم، اما تلاشم را می کنم تا در قطار میزبانان با استعداد برنامه‌های قبلی قرار بگیرم. امیدوارم از برنامه هفته گذشته در کنار فریدون همانی با استعداد و دیگر فیلمسازان و قصه گویان جماعت لذت برده باشید. همانطوری که به صحبت‌های فریدون درباره فیلمبرداری در سراسر دنیا گوش می‌دادم، من فقط می‌خواستم سوار هواپیما شوم و برای دیدن خانواده و دوستان سفر کنم. اما کووید مسافرت را عملاً غیر ممکن کرده است. دلم برای سفر تنگ شده است. در جریان همه‌گیری همه ما از دست دادن یک چیز را، از دست دادن کار یا تجارت و از دست دادن آزادی را تجربه کردیم، در حالی که سعی می‌کنیم همزمان پدر و مادر معلم باشیم. از دست دادن این که نتوانیم به جماعتخانه برویم یا این که نمیتوانیم با یک دوست خود برای یک قهوه یا چای دور هم جمع شویم. و برای بعضی از ما این از دست دادن جبران ناپذیر بوده است. از دست دادن یکی از عزیزی که نمیتوانستیم به درستی با او خداحافظی کنیم. در آنتاریو مانند بسیاری از مناطق کشور ما در حال ورود به موج سوم همه‌گیری هستیم و با ظهور واریانس یا نوع دیگر ویروس و افزایش میزان عفونت به ویژه در میان افراد جوان هنوز از خطر در امان نیستیم و باید محتاط باشیم. هرچند برنامه امشب درباره از دست دادن، غم و ناراحتی نیست، در عوض این درباره این است که چگونه می توانیم ضررهای خود را بپذیریم، در آنها معنی پیدا کنیم و با قدرت ایمان خود نه تنها با امید به واکسین ها بلکه با درک و اطمینان از اینکه رحمت الهی خداوند با ما هست با اطمینان پیش برویم. این موضوع خاص در مورد اندوه و از دست دادن و امید برای من شخصا قابل درک است. من در طی 5 سال با 3 سرطان پیشرفته تشخیص داده شدم و دچار خسارات فوق‌العاده از جمله از دست دادن هویت، از دست دادن استقلال مالی، از دست دادن هدف، از دست دادن کنترل بر بدن خود، از دست دادن عزت نفس شدم. با این حال امروز من با لطف خداوند زنده هستم و کاملا صحتمند و من حیث میزبان برنامه بازتاب جمعه شب با شما هستم. برنامه امروز را با پیام رئیس کنسول ملی کانادا امیرعلی قاسم لکا شروع می کنیم. سپس با ما الوایزا پاریندا چاگانی همراه خواهیم شد که در مورد درک غم و اندوه و یافتن امید در قالب ایمان ما تأمل می کند. بعداً من با الوایزا یک مکالمه کوتاه خواهم داشت و به دنبال آن من کمی در مورد سفر زندگی خود و آنچه را که من پشت سر گذاشتم به اشتراک می گذارم. سپس سرگرمی جدید یک فعالیت آگاهی ذهنی انجام خواهیم داد. بنابراین لطفاً تا پایان با ما باشید. فقط 1 ساعت و سپس مثل همیشه برنامه امشب را با یک پارچه موسیقی فوق العاده به پایان میبریم. اما در ابتدا بیایید از رئیس امیرعلی قاسم لکا بشنویم.
My dear brothers and sisters, یا علی مدد.
برادران و خواهران عزیزم، یا علی مدد. امیدوارم همه شما و خانواده هایتان صحت و سلامت باشید. میخواهم برای چند دقیقه با شما در مورد وضعیت فعلی همه‌گیری در کانادا صحبت کنم. به گفته مقامات بهداشتی کانادا، انواع سریع الانتقال ویروس کووید در بسیاری از مناطق کشور به طور قابل توجه جایگزین ویروس اصلی شده است. شرایط انواع کووید بریتانیایی، برزیلی و آفریقای جنوبی وجود دارد. در کانادا ما در حال حاضر در میانه کشمکش شرایط انواع کووید و تکمیل واکسین ها هستیم. انواع جدید کووید باعث می شود که افراد جوانتر بیمار و در نتیجه بستری شوند. این موضوع توجه بیشتر ما را می طلبد. میزان واگیری زیاد است و افرادی که قبلا خود را کمتر آسیب پذیر می دیدند دچار بیماری شدند. ما در موج سوم جدی بیماری همه‌گیر قرار داریم و دولت از افراد جوانتر خواسته است که در خانه بمانند. با افزایش میزان واگیری حتی بزرگسالان 20 تا 30 ساله نیاز به بستری شدن در شفاخانه دارند. وضع بسیاری از آنها به سرعت بدتر می شود. نیاز به بستری شدن فوری دارند و برای بهبودی نیاز به زمان بیشتر ماندن در ICU یا بخش مراقبت‌های جدی دارند که بر ظرفیت شفاخانه ها فشار می آورد. در بعضی از ولایات تعداد بیماران ICU در بالاترین سطح از زمان همه‌گیری است، زیرا انواع سریع الانتقال ویروس کووید در شیوع بیشتر نقش دارند. برخی از ولایات اقدامات سختگیرانه‌تر مانند ماندن در خانه را به اجرا گذاشتند. برادران و خواهران عزیزم، انواع مختلف این ویروس نشان داده است که نسبت به اصل ویروس سرعت شیوع بیشتر دارد. بنابراین ما از جماعت تقاضا می‌کنیم که لطفاً همه پروتکل‌ها را رعایت کنید و تا حد امکان در خانه بمانید مگر آنکه ضرورت حتمی داشته باشید. فعالیت‌های بیرون از خانه را به حداقل برسانید. چند هفته آینده در تلاش جمعی ما برای کند کردن شیوع ویروس در کانادا بسیار مهم است. می‌خواهم پیام مولانا حاضر امام را به مناسبت نوروز به جماعت یادآوری کنم. حاضر امام امیدوار است که جماعت از هر گونه بی‌پروایی اجتناب کنند و هر مرید باید با احساس مسئولیت شخصی اطمینان حاصل کند که برای محافظت خود در مقابل ویروس ادامه می‌دهد. همچنین به محض ارائه واکسین همه مریدانش باید طبق دستورالعمل‌های مقامات بهداشتی واکسین بزنند. مولانا حاضر امام همچنین توصیه کردند که با موفقیت تولید واکسین‌های مؤثر و سایر روش‌های درمانی، جوامع در سراسر جهان با احساس امید و خوشبینی منتظر پایان بیماری همه‌گیر کووید 19 هستند. حاضر امام برای مقاومت، قوت و اتحاد بیشتر در بین جماعت و غلبه بر همه مشکلات دعا کردند. بنابراین با وجود آنکه کشور وارد موج سوم می شود، ما می توانیم با اطمینان به آینده نگاه کنیم. ما یک بار دیگر تقاضا می کنیم که احتیاط لازم را رعایت کنید. من می دانم که این یک دوره طولانی و دشوار بوده است. همه ما این گونه احساس می کنیم. با وجود آن انشاءالله در کانادا چند ماهی با تکمیل واکسیناسیون فاصله داریم و بنابراین برای رفع خطر سلامتی ما و سلامتی عزیزان ما خیلی نزدیک هستیم. پس از همه شما خواهشمندم که مراقب خود باشید و از همه افراد خانواده خود به خوبی مراقبت کنید. مواظب سلامتی و ایمنی خود باشید. انشاءالله نوری امیدی در پیش رو است. تشکر از توجه شما و خدا حافظ.
خیلی ممنون جناب رئیس صاحب از نظرات و یادآوری هایتان به خاطر احتیاط لازمه در این وقت همه‌گیری. و حالا از الوایزه پرینده چگانی میشنویم. الوایزه فارغ التحصیل برنامه آموزش بین المللی واعظین است و به مدت 10 دهه من حیث الوایزه خدمت کرده است. همچنان سابقه خدمت به حیث رئیسه فوکس کانادا و مکیانی صاحبه جماعتی و کاپیتان رضاکاران را دارست. از نظر حرفه‌ای او یک مشاور مدیریت است که در زمینه اثر بخشی عملیاتی و بینش رفتاری تخصص دارد. الوایزه از بریتیش کلمبیای زیبا با ما می پیوندد. خوش آمدید الوایزه صاحب.
Thank you, Munira. Ya Ali Madad. It's almost unbelievable that we are now in the second year of the pandemic. For over a year, we have had to grapple with the significant impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on our lives. The University of Manitoba recently conducted a survey that challenged participants to identify silver linings, if any, of the pandemic. More than 85% of the respondents identified at least one silver lining. And yet, the pandemic has also brought changes that are not welcome. It has brought loss in many shapes and forms. Loss of jobs, loss of health, financial loss, loss of independence for some of us who have had to turn to family and friends for simple things like picking up groceries so that we can minimize health risks. Our Jamaat Khanas, around which our lives are centered, have not been accessible. And of course, during this time, many of us have also experienced the loss of loved ones. It has been a difficult time. Human nature is such that we resist change. It is difficult to let go, and therefore we may struggle with these losses. A common and normal reaction to experiencing loss is grief. Grief may be defined as the distress, the sadness, the pain that we feel when something that we value is taken away from us. And there are often emotional, physical, and mental reactions that accompany grief. And so grief may include intense emotions such as anger, fear, helplessness, sadness. And there may be physical symptoms such as tears, headaches, loss of appetite, or mental symptoms such as being unable to concentrate or forgetfulness. The more significant the relationship with who we have lost, the more intense are the reactions. And at times it may feel like the pain is simply unbearable. Grief is a normal part of life, and it takes time to heal. So what are some coping strategies that may be helpful? Strategies such as simply let it happen rather than suppressing the feelings. It is okay if the tears come or if we feel sad. It is true that the grief journey is a lonely one, but it is also up to each person to decide just how lonely they will make it. And so another strategy is to use our support system, family, friends, support groups. These can be helpful when we need to talk or need help with practical things such as financial or official matters, rides, and so on. An important coping strategy is to look after ourselves from 3 dimensions: the body, the mind, and the soul. To look after the body means to eat healthy, get enough sleep. If we're having trouble sleeping, we might consider seeking some professional help. Looking after the mind and the body are connected. Exercise is a great way to manage stress, to provide some relief to the mind from the overwhelming emotions. Finding moments of relaxation, it is okay to laugh or to find joy in other areas of our lives. And caring for the spirit. How do we care for the spirit? The Holy Quran guides us on how to cope with loss, how to accept loss and find hope with patience, sabr, and submission. In the Holy Quran, prayer is enjoined upon the believer. In a letter attributed to Hazrat Ali alayhi salam, written to his son, Hazrat Hassan alayhi salam, the Imam explains about prayer to his son. He says, "Think over it, that by simply granting you the privilege of praying for his favors and mercies, he has handed over the keys of his treasuries to you. Whenever you are in need, you should pray, and he will confer his bounties and blessings." In the Holy Quran, Allah assures us that he listens to our prayers. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah says, "O Prophet, when my servants ask you about me, then tell them, I am indeed very close. I answer the prayer of the supplicant who calls to me." And elsewhere in the Holy Quran, "Call upon me, I will respond to you." This word, call, I respond to those who call me and call upon me. This word call isn't simply remembering. When we remember someone, we bring that person's memory into our hearts, into our minds. But there isn't an action on the part of the person that we are remembering. But when we call someone, there is an underlying connotation of a response. And so Allah assures us in the Holy Quran that when we call, He responds. And so in our tradition, we have always turned to practice of the faith, to prayer, individual as well as congregational prayer, to seek peace and strength through difficulties. But with this pandemic, how we practice the faith has changed. We do not have access to Jamaat Khanas and to congregational prayers. For those of us who are dealing with loss, whether it is the loss of a loved one or a different kind of a loss, coping with the loss becomes more difficult as we have had to adjust to changes in the practices that we are used to, from which we draw comfort. Families and friends who are often pillars of strength at a time of loss are unable to be together to support each other. We are unable to participate in as large numbers in congregational prayer as we used to. And all these changes can be unsettling. But let us remind ourselves of what is the essence of prayer. And let us do that through the lovely story of Prophet Musa and the shepherd. Prophet Musa came upon a shepherd. The shepherd was calling upon God. "Where are you, O God? I want to be your servant. I want to comb your hair and remove the lice from it. I want to wash your clothes and bring milk to you. I want to rub your little foot," and so on. Prophet Musa was offended. He said to the shepherd, "How can you speak in this way to the one who created you, the one who created the earth and the sky? Indeed, you have not submitted to Allah. You have become an infidel." The shepherd was devastated at what he had done. "O Moses," he said, "you have closed my mouth, and you have burned my soul with repentance." And then a revelation came to Moses from God. "You have parted my servant from me. I look not at the tongue and the speech, I look at the inward spirit and the feeling. I gaze into the heart." What does this story tell us? It speaks to the how we practice. In the shepherd's case, how he prayed, that is the words that he used, that is what offended Prophet Musa. But the revelation to Prophet Musa tells us that Allah looks not at how one prays, Allah looks at the heart, the sincerity, the humility, and very importantly, the niyat, the intention. This story tells us that niyat is fundamental. It is the central principle that underpins all our practices. And so at this time of the pandemic, while we are unable to undertake all the practices as we traditionally did in the Jamaat Khana space, in large gatherings and so on, the example of the shepherd reminds us that individual prayers are powerful. The shepherd was praying in the fields surrounded by his flock. He wasn't praying in a formalized way or in a traditional space of worship or in a congregation. If we look in our history, we find examples of Jamaats in areas where there were no Jamaat Khanas for various reasons, and the Jamaat practiced in their homes. And so we see that niyat and sincerity, love and devotion, these are the essential elements of prayer. And so during this pandemic, we need not fear that our prayers are any the less because of the changes in our practices. Rather, we must focus on Allah's infinite mercy and compassion and submit our prayers with conviction that He will accept our prayers. Additionally, let us remind ourselves of Maulana Hazrat Imam's Talika Mubarak in December 2020. Maulana Hazrat Imam Salawatullah alayhi said, "It is a matter of satisfaction that my Jamaat continues to draw inspiration from our historic tradition of facing adversity with unity, resolve, and resilience. I believe my Jamaat will find comfort and support from the practice of their faith, whether in Jamaat Khanas, where these are accessible, or by way of private, personal prayer." Private, personal prayer. And so though we miss attending Jamaat Khanas, we miss the experience of praying together as a Jamaat. Nonetheless, we can continue to offer our prayers at home with pure niyat, with full engagement of the heart, to draw comfort and courage and strength. In that same letter that I mentioned earlier, Hazrat Ali alayhi salam speaks to his son Hazrat Hassan alayhi salam about prayer, about personal prayer, in very beautiful, inspirational words. He says, "He hears you whenever you call Him. He accepts your prayer whenever you pray to Him. Invoke Him to grant you your heart's desire. Lay before Him the secrets of your heart. Tell Him about all the calamities that have befallen you and misfortunes which face you, and beseech His help to overcome them. You may invoke His help and support in difficulties and distresses." Just as the shepherd spoke from his heart, expressing his love and devotion, so we can, in our own way, tell Him how we feel, what's in our hearts, and seek His help and support through the difficult journey of grief. Experiencing loss is always painful, and experiencing the loss of a loved one is often a deeply traumatic event for the family. Experiences in life offer opportunity for growth, for self-development, especially the painful and difficult ones. It is said that grief is a teacher. Let us reflect upon some learnings that we can draw from the experience of loss. Life is fragile. Life is short. Things don't always make sense. Sometimes the answer to our why is that there is no answer. Living through loss, living through instability, makes us think about what we can count on. We can count on the relationships we have. And so another learning is to treasure the time that we have with our loved ones. And to think of practical ways to do this, like not going to sleep without expressing your love, your joy, your gratitude to your loved ones. Remember, this moment will not come again. We can count on the values we have, putting those values into action. For example, making sure that no day goes by without kindness and compassion to others. The last year has been difficult for everyone. Even a small gesture of kindness can have a huge impact on someone's well-being. Another learning is to strive for balance, even in sad times. Yes, there is loss. At the same time, there are many blessings in our lives. So try to smile, to laugh. Remember, a smile itself is a blessing. An important learning is to mend fences if they are in disrepair. It will be part of what we leave behind. So there are many learnings from the experience of grief, because it cannot be, it mustn't be for nothing that we go through this pain. Of all the lessons that grief teaches us, perhaps the most powerful is articulated by Imam Mustansir Billah alayhi salam in the Pandiyat-e Jawan Mardi. Imam says, "Whomsoever you love in this world will be ultimately separated from you by death, causing you grief. Therefore, it is necessary for you to develop affection for someone who will be with you both in this world and in the hereafter, who never disappears, who is nearer to you than anyone, nay, nearer even than your very self." Here our Imam speaks to the necessity of an eternal relationship, a bond which goes beyond the physical life. And he guides us to the importance of nurturing and strengthening that bond throughout our lifetime, through prayer, remembrance, ibadat, service. And as we go through this journey of loss and pain, we can remember that our Imam is with us. Imam's chatra chaya, his blessings, his love, all of this is an integral part of our lives. Let me conclude with Maulana Hazar Imam's heartwarming message at the beginning of the pandemic. Maulana Hazar Imam Salawatullah alayhi said, "Please convey my best paternal and my best maternal loving blessings to my worldwide Jamaat and tell them that I think of them every minute of the day, each day, and I pray for Mushkil Asan and for their peace and happiness." Shukran lillah. Thank you.
Thank you, Alwaeza, for going deep into the topic of grief and loss and hope. And as you were speaking, I was furiously taking some notes because I have so many questions to ask you. My first question is, I love the way you positioned your presentation to say that through the pandemic, we have experienced many losses, and this has also been a time of welcome changes. So my question for you from a place of vulnerability is, what is one loss you have personally experienced and one gift from the pandemic?
Oh goodness, yes. We've all experienced loss in some way. Perhaps what I have found particularly difficult is the loss of freedom. Freedom to do the things that I want to do. Freedom to go have coffee with my friends. Freedom to celebrate festivals and special occasions as we used to. Freedom to travel so that I can go see our son and daughter-in-law who live abroad. And yes, our family has also experienced a significant loss of a dear family member just last week. But as you say, there are also welcome changes. And for me, I would say that time is one of those. Having the time to do the things that I didn't have time to do before. So around the time that the pandemic started, we watched The Queen's Gambit. And that inspired me to dust off the chess set sitting in the basement and to start using it. And it's been so much fun. And when my brain's tired of that, I switched to my delightful 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. And that is great too, although it's going rather slow.
You know, I think a lot of us can relate to the loss of freedom that you talk about. And it's great that you rediscovered your passion for jigsaw puzzles and chess and The Queen's Gambit. Great movie. Thank you for that. You mentioned something that I found really quite interesting, that human beings are resistant to change.
You also described the emotional, physical, and mental reactions that accompany grief. How is this connected, Alwaeza, and how is grief showing up in our Jamaat?
This is a great question, Munira. Human nature is such that letting go is difficult. Throughout our lives, we are conditioned to gather, to collect, because that accumulation defines us in the physical life. It's part of our identity. I am a mother, I'm a father, I have this home, I have this car, I have 3 children, and so on. And so we gather. And letting go isn't easy because it chips away at that identity that we may have built, and it makes us feel vulnerable. And with loss, we have no option but to let go. And so we grieve. Grieving is very personal. Each one of us is unique, so each person grieves differently. There isn't a standard or a typical way, because there is no standard or typical loss. Some of us want to be alone at this time. Some of us can't be alone and need to connect with others. And of course, there are many emotions that can accompany grief. Sadness, sometimes guilt or anger. Why did this happen to me? Questions may arise about our core beliefs, and often we search for meaning. We may turn inwards in this quest for meaning. We turn to the faith for answers to help us make sense of what's happened.
Yeah, letting go can be just so hard. And I love how you defined change and loss, because loss requires that we let go of things. I just love the way that you brought that together. And I also loved how you talked about the fact that grieving is personal. There is no one way to grieve. It is so individual, and I think that will bring a lot of comfort to people. When you talk about dealing with loss, you speak of sabr, and this is a word that I hear very often from my 90-year-old mom, who will always say to me, sabr rak. And I would love for you to elaborate more on the notion of sabr.
Thank you for asking this question. It's a question that often arises in our minds. Sabr means patience, and this word appears in the Holy Quran many times. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah speaks of tests that He sets for us. He speaks of loss and of the importance of facing loss with patience, with sabr. So why is patience important in the face of difficulties and trials? The Holy Quran repeatedly declares that all things in this world have been made in paired opposites. There is light, there is dark. There is the temporary life of this world, dunya, and the eternal life hereafter, the akhirah. There is happiness and there is sadness. And the idea is that as believers, we trust Allah at all times, through good times and difficult times. And so it can be suggested that even in difficult times, or perhaps especially in difficult times, we can turn to Allah with absolute submission to His will, with full trust in Allah's mercy and grace, with full trust that Allah is good and that He will pull us through this difficult time. So these are the sentiments that underlie the notion of patience. It is this trust in Allah that gives us the strength to be patient through the difficult times. And when we are patient, Allah tells us in Surah Al-Baqarah that those who are patient, upon them descend blessings from Allah and mercy from Allah.
Thank you for that. Patience is certainly not something that comes easy to me. But after hearing you, I see how you take the notion of patience and really intertwine that with trust in Allah. And I think that's a really fantastic message. You make reference in your presentation to the letter that Hazrat Ali wrote to his son, Hazrat Hassan, when he said, and I quote, whenever you're in need, you should pray, and he will confer his bounties and blessings. There is something so inherently comforting in those words.
Indeed. In fact, Hazrat Ali alayhi salam describes prayer as a privilege. And he describes it as the key to Allah's treasuries. Imagine having that key. And so if we pray with pure niyat, with full submission, with complete trust and conviction in Allah's grace and rahmah, imagine how powerful prayer can be.
Your reference to the teachings of Imam Mustansir Billah was very powerful. I hadn't heard that before. I know from speaking with you that this particular teaching has a lot of resonance for you. Can you highlight the essence of that particular teaching, please?
Yes. The Imam reminds us in very simple terms that the physical life and all that it offers is finite. And hence, there will come a day when all of this will end. And therefore, there is the need for a permanent bond, a bond with someone who will always be with us, who never leaves us. And this, of course, is a spiritual bond, for only the spiritual life is eternal. And so the Imam reminds us of the importance of nurturing this spiritual bond. To me, this highlights the importance of balance in our lives between din and dunya. And it gives comfort that with this spiritual bond, we are never alone, not in this life, not in the hereafter.
What a wonderful place to stop. Alwaeza, you have been so generous with your time. You have helped me certainly, and I know that I speak on behalf of a lot of people, helped us really see grief, hope, loss in a very different way. And I just really want to thank you for making the time to deliver a really deep reflection on this topic. Thank you, Alwaeza.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
سخنان الوایزه یادآور خاطرات زیاد برای من بود. هنگامی که برای اولین بار با سرطان تشخیص داده شدم، من مراحل مختلف غمگینی و ناراحتی را تجربه کردم. انکار این که این اتفاق برای من می افتد، عصبانیت از این که زندگی که برای خودم برنامه ریزی کرده بودم دیگر ممکن نیست، زیرا مانند این بود که برای روزهای محدود زنده هستم. افسردگی وقتی که من حتی برای کوچکترین چیزها، مثلا از تخت بیرون آمدن، به کمک نیاز داشتم. هر روز تلاش و چانه زدن با هر کسی و همه برای زنده ماندن. و یک روز من کاملا تسلیم خواست خدا شدم و گفتم خب خداوندا، شما خالق مطلق، طراح اصلی و کارگردان هستید. شما برنامه را می دانید، من نمیدانم کنترل بر این موضوع داشته باشم. من کاملا و با خوشحالی تسلیم رضای شما هستم. آن وقت بود که فهمیدم پذیرفته شدم. البته این مراحل مانند یک مدل خطی نیستند. گاهی اوقات نظر به شرایط ما بین مرحله عقب و جلو و عقب خواهیم رفت و با هر از دست دادن چیز مرحله را دوباره طی می‌کنیم. این را من تجربه کردم. دلیل این که می خواهم این مسئله را با شما در میان بگذارم این است که اگر چالش ها یا مشکلات را تجربه می کنید، مانند بسیاری از ما در این زمان همگیری، و اگر احساسات مانند غم یا عصبانیت دارید، بسیار خوب، این عادی است. این بخشی از شرایط زندگی ما و شما است. این بخشی از روند غم و اندوه است که الوایزه درباره آن صحبت کرد. با این وجود مهم است آنچه را که نمیتوانید کنترل کنید رها کنید، زیرا وقت عمدن آنچه را که طوری که هست نه به شکلی که شما می خواهید باشد می پذیرید. چیز تغییر می کند و فضا برای تغییر بهبود می یابد. می دانید فقط وقتی که من بالاخره به پذیرش متمایل شدم و رسیدن به آنجا مدت طول کشید. دنیا دوباره برای من باز شد. من کتاب نوشتم. دوباره شروع به کار کردم. من میزبان پادکست شدم. من شروع کردم به داوطلب شدن برای اهدافی که برای من مهم هستند. من حتی سرانجام آشپزی را یاد گرفتم و با خوشحالی همه چیزها را از لیست آرزوهایم انجام می دهم و با هدف زندگی می کنم. بنابراین در این زمان چالش برانگیز تمام احساسات را که تجربه می کنید با آغوش باز بپذیرید و سعی کنید معنای خود را در مشکلات و چالش های خود پیدا کنید و با اطمینان در جهت رویاهای خود حرکت کنید. شما می توانید این کار را انجام بدهید.
On March 27th, 2020, I lost my mom. She passed away from cancer. She died 4 days after receiving the diagnosis. Because of COVID-19, we were not able to be with her in the hospital. This was a really challenging and shocking time for our family. We weren't able to gather in Jamaat Khana. We weren't able to gather as a family. But with Zoom, we were able to talk to each other, share happy stories about my mom, share memories about my mom. We also looked towards our faith for help and support, and praying on a daily basis really helped us get through this most difficult time. It was also really great for me to talk to my sister Farine every day and talk to her about my mom and share her stories with my mom, and for her to share her stories, and for our children to talk about their stories about their grandmother. That was very special for us. So while it was really difficult during COVID-19 to lose somebody, we found great strength within each other and within our faith. And that's how we were able to cope during this time.
Losing a dear one is very hard. I was not ready for this. It hit me hard with a lot of emotions and questions. I felt lonely and helpless. I would question myself. Why me? Why one of my loved ones? What I could have done to prevent this situation. But with time, I realized that all this questioning wouldn't change it. So I had to accept it and change my perspective by asking for help. We are so lucky and blessed as a community. We have all this help ready for us. So I called the chairperson of Health Board, and they were there for me. They would take their time, listen to me, make follow-ups, and put me in contact with professionals if I needed. I remind myself I have my family, my relatives, and my friends, and I want to be there for them. In order to be able to do that, I have to take care of myself, take care of my physical and mental health. So my advice for anyone going through this kind of situation is not to be afraid or shy to ask for help, to surround yourself with good and positive people, to accept it and to forgive yourself. And more important, to be able to move on. To move on does not mean to forget, but to keep the good memories with you.
We lost our father and our grandmother during this current pandemic. Our father passed away in December over the Christmas holidays of 2020, and our grandmother a couple of months later. Obviously, losing somebody, whether it's a pandemic or not, is very difficult. However, the pandemic really didn't allow us to grieve the normal way we're used to when somebody close to us passes away. Being in complete lockdown when they passed away meant no one was allowed to your house. We couldn't get together with our family members physically. Jamaat Khana was closed. So it really wears on you and it takes a toll, you know, because that's how we were used to grieving. Unfortunately, our hands were tied and we had to grieve in different ways. I don't think there's a correct way or a right or a wrong way to grieve. But what we did as a family was we made sure that we got together every night after Dad passed away and after our grandmother passed away, and prayed together at a certain time and set up a Zoom call that we were all together for that time after they passed away. And that's still ongoing. And there may be times where you want to grieve alone too. I think at this time too, you should also celebrate the lives of your loved ones as well. I know that my father had done so much for the community, and it helps us really grieve and celebrate the good times, knowing that, you know, he'd led such a good life. And for my grandmother, I mean, she was 95 years old and she led a great life too. Sometimes you need to dwell on the positives more so than the negatives. However, keeping in constant communication with your family, keeping in constant communication with your friends, talking about it to people over the phone. I know it's not the same as being in person, but these small things do help along the way. It's definitely a process. Every day is different. Some days you wake up okay and some days you won't. But it's a process that you have to go through. It's definitely not easy. But I really think that communication, staying close with your loved ones, talking to them all the time is one of the most important ways you can keep together and get through such difficult times.
In speaking to loss, I lost my dad to cancer on October 5th, and this was just 1 month before his 57th birthday. And it was one of the most painful experiences that has permanently changed me and my family. Despite a global pandemic, and granted at that time there were looser restrictions, we had an outpouring of love and support from family and friends who stood by our side throughout the entire process. What was unexpected during this time was the role that the Mayyit and Ghusl team played in the process of healing and also assisting with the last rites and ceremonies. No matter what time I called them, including the Jamaati leadership team, they were always a phone call away. The Jamaati leadership team and the Jamaati members were also an anchor as they enveloped us in their love and support and really went above and beyond to provide that support. It made me extremely thankful to be an Ismaili. Now each family member goes through loss differently, and I learned this early on that it's important to support your family members through their grief process and support them through their journey as they did with me. My dad had trained us right from the beginning when we were kids to know that death is not the end. And there's much more to see once the soul is released from the worldly form. I know that he's happy wherever he is, but the question still comes up initially. Why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to my family? And why do I have to suffer this pain? And for that answer, I remember Sultan Muhammad Shah's Farman, where he says struggle is the meaning of life. We all have problems that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and some of these problems will be much more difficult to cope with than others. However, it's important to develop a healthy coping strategy and allow yourself to be open to receiving support from friends and family. My coping strategy was my faith, and at a time when I can't go to Jamaat Khana, personal prayer and reflection was key. We as humans are extremely resilient. My dad's loss will never be easier, despite what people say that it gets easier day by day. What does happen though is that you learn to cope better day by day. And inshallah, for anyone that is experiencing loss or has experienced loss, you are able to find your coping strategy to help you during your struggle.
In June 2020, I lost my dearest brother, Karim Gwadri. Losing a family member in any circumstances is difficult. Losing a family member during the global pandemic was traumatic. The inability to attend Jamaat Khane, to perform the rituals needed, or following public health measures and not being able to hug your loved ones made it very, very challenging. In my opinion, I felt that those two elements were needed to overcome grief. Some of the methods that I used in overcoming grief was reaching out more to family, sharing stories, sharing laughter, sharing experiences which helped considerably. Then reaching out to our British Columbia Mukikamra Sahibs and Mukiani Kamra Sahibas and our Alwaezas. Those groups combined are a wealth of information and of hope, and that was what they infused in me. Being part of a volunteer community exposed me to other groups that continued to carry me through this time, which I'm very, very blessed. Finally, being in BC, we are blessed to have a lot of trails, and I would walk, and I still do, every single day as a way of connecting with nature and connecting with Allah, and that too has become a source of inspiration for me.
In this part of Friday Night Reflections, we're going to try something new. We are going to do a mindfulness activity, and I would love it if you could all, everyone watching, participate with me.
The purpose of this short reflection and associated mindfulness exercise is to provide grieving individuals and families with an opportunity for emotional and spiritual comfort and solace, enabling them to draw on their inner strength. In some Muslim contexts or societies, mindfulness is viewed in reference to al-muraqabah, a conscious state of awareness of Allah, including our inner states in relation to Him. As the Quran Sharif states in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat 235, remember that God knows what is in your souls, so be mindful of Him. Amongst Shia and most Muslim mystical traditions, Hazrat Ali alayhi salam is regarded as the foremost spiritual guide after Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family. For Shia Ismaili Muslims, a conscious state of awareness also includes the awareness of our permanent spiritual bond with our beloved Maulana Hazar Imam at all times and wherever we are, as well as the role of our Imam as Mushkil Kusha, remover of difficulties. Mindfulness can be thought of as an aspect of this conscious awareness and provides an opportunity to create a space to observe and to be present with ourselves and our emotions without judgment. This enables us to work towards acceptance and letting go of the tension and thoughts that may be intensifying our pain. This is not necessarily about changing the way we feel, but instead changing how we perceive such feelings. By taking an approach rooted in our faith, we can help our souls as well as our minds and bodies to heal. Inshallah, over time, we can find a sense of inner peace. In this exercise, the remembrance of Allah through dhikr or a tasbih can act as an anchor and at the same time help us feel protected and supported as we seek to draw strength from our spiritual bond with Imam-e-Zaman. We hope that this results in enhanced physical, emotional, and spiritual health, and over time in greater resilience when faced with loss or grief. If, however, you are finding it difficult to manage on your own or are having particularly uncomfortable sensations after engaging in this exercise, please seek professional and/or spiritual support. Let us begin to work through the grief we are experiencing by engaging in a reflection and mindfulness exercise. By remembering Allah and allowing ourselves to be present with our emotions, thoughts, and sensations, we can begin to process and accept our grief, and ultimately move towards healing. Begin by settling into a comfortable position. This could be sitting, standing, or reclining. If you are sitting, place your feet on the floor. Find a comfortable posture and relax your shoulders. Gently close your eyes or simply lower your gaze and focus your attention inwards. Use this moment to be present and notice what is happening in the here and now. What thoughts are going through your mind? Is your mind racing or calm? What are you feeling? The pain of your loss may be present with you. You may be experiencing anger, sadness, despair, or any other emotions. Perhaps you aren't feeling anything at all right now. Allow yourself to simply observe your feelings, thoughts, and sensations without judgment. Whatever you feel in this moment is completely okay. You may find it helpful to anchor your mindfulness in a dhikr or a tasbih. You may choose to draw upon Ya Allah, Ya Muhammad, Ya Ali, or any of the beautiful names of Allah, or simply the salawat. Now bring your awareness to your breath. Allow yourself to breathe naturally. Inhale smoothly through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. As you inhale, notice the air moving in through your nose and down into your stomach. As you exhale, gently release the air. It is natural for thoughts and feelings to come into your mind during this time. Allow them to come and go without judgment, and return your attention to the breath. As you breathe, allow the dhikr you have chosen to move through your body. Breathe in and out, in and out. As you focus on your natural, relaxed breathing, become aware of how the air moves through your body, helping to nourish you. Feel the life and energy Allah has given you throughout your body. Allow that energy to build within you a deep sense of gratitude to Allah for your breath, your living, and your being in this moment. Consider that the eternal spark within you, your soul, comes from Allah and will return back to its origin to rest in eternal peace. As you settle into stillness within your inner space, begin to perceive the feeling of being aware of Mawla. Know and feel that Mawla is with you now and at all times. He is always with you. Mawla's grace knows no limits, and His compassion knows no bounds. Mawla's love for you and for those you love is endless and encompassing. Allow yourself to contemplate that Mawla's love and blessings are always with you. Let that love fill you with a sense of protection and peace. Spend time with this and let those feelings gradually deepen with each breath, in and out, in and out. As you are present in this moment, your mind may wander. you may become distracted. Thoughts of pain and suffering may return. This is natural. When you notice your attention wandering, simply acknowledge it without judgment and gently bring your awareness back to being present with your dhikr. Allow your dhikr to anchor your breathing. Remember, it is natural for thoughts and feelings to come into your mind during this time. Simply use your dhikr to return to a state of mindfulness. Continue to focus on being present with Mawla. Know and feel that Mawla is always with you. Mawla's grace knows no limits, and His compassion knows no bounds. Continue breathing in and out, in and out. Stay in this mindful state for as long as you like. When you are ready, slowly open your eyes and bring your attention back to your surroundings. Let us end this reflection with Surah Ad-Duha and with Nade Ali. Surah Ad-Duha came to our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam during one of his most challenging moments, as a reminder of Allah's love and grace. As you hear its opening verses, may it be a reminder to you of the same presence in your own life. By the morning brightness and by the night when it grows still, your Lord has not forsaken you, nor does He hate you, and the future will be better for you than the past. Your Lord is sure to give you so much that you will be well satisfied. A well-known prayer in Muslim tradition is Nade Ali. It is recited by believers in times of difficulty and invokes the help of Hazrat Ali alayhi salam. Nade Ali, Nade Ali, Nade Aliyan, Mazharal Ajaib, Tajidduhu Aunan Lakafin Nawaib, Kuluhamin, Wagamin, Sayanjali Bivilayatika, Ya Ali, Ya Ali, Ya Ali. Call Ali, call Ali, call Ali the manifester of wonders. You will surely find Him helping you in your troubles. All grief and sorrow shall disappear by your authority, O Ali, O Ali, O Ali.
به عنوان نماد همکاری، مغز احساسی و مغز منطقی شما به شما کمک می کند. جهان سپاس از این که در این هفته با ما پیوستید. خیلی خرسندم که میزبان شما بودم. میدانید یک تیم کوچک و قدرتمند رضاکاران لازم است تا هر هفته برنامه‌های بازتاب جمعه شب تهیه گردد. و من میخواهم از همه افرادی که در پشت صحنه کار میکنند تشکر کنم. با امید صحت و سلامتی همه شما آخر هفته عالی داشته باشید و از پخش موسیقی لذت ببرید.
Following the battle, look them in the eyes. Knew it wasn't over, we could celebrate the night. Hush my babies, don't you cry. Don't look like me, but I'm here inside. Sit and burn a candle on both ends every night. Falling down and getting up, learning a new life. Life of a survivor, facing new desires. Won't sit down, gotta ignite us. Holding on, yeah, survived enough, but I'm not giving up. On my darkest days, a love will hold me up. I survive, and I choose how. I've come this far, I wanna see stand for something, maybe I can heal my tribe. Daring greatly to feel this fire. Solid faith when reality lies. What happens in the darkness when fear and pain collide? Find the guiding light, stand for all who can fight. Yes, we can break boundaries. No one won't stay silent, be the change I wanna see. Holding on, yes, I've had enough, but I'm not giving up. All my darkest days of love will hold me up. I will survive, and I choose how. I've come this far, I wanna see what's next. I'm not letting go. If I don't wake up tomorrow, I got no regrets. Didn't think I would make it, just couldn't admit it. Was crashing and burning, but it woke up my spirit, and I choose how. Count the blessings till my very last breath. Ooh, got a decision to make. Ooh, got a lot to protect, refuse to give up yet. Ooh, strength of a soldier, heart of a lion. Ooh, I'll be the one you can rely on, and I choose how. I've come this far, I wanna see what's next. I'm not letting go. If I don't wake up tomorrow, I got no regrets. Didn't think I would make it, just couldn't admit it. Was crashing and burning, but it woke up my spirit, so I'm choosing hope. Count the blessings till my